Hey everybody, it's Party Elite with another episode of Total Breakdown. We've got another excellent mirror match today as the Elves go to war amongst themselves, led by Ondjage and Diplomatt. Ondjage's army is led by a Glade Lord in the air with a Potion of Toughness, the Arrow of Kurnos, and Prey of Anathrema. The Branch Wraith comes in with Smoke and Mirrors, Call of the Woods, Earthblood, Melkoth's Mystifying Miasma, a Scroll of Leeching, and a Scroll of Shielding, while the Waystalker comes in with the Arrow of Kurnos. A unit of Dryads and 3 units of War Dancers make up the infantry line, while 2 units of Glade Guard with Starfire Shafts will be extra efficient against trees, and 2 units of Deepwood Scouts will look to kite alongside them, all while being shielded by 3 units of Wild Riders. Diplomatt goes for a larger army with a Glade Lord on foot with a Potion of Foolhardiness, a Potion of Toughness, and Prey of Anathrema. The Spellsinger of Life comes in with Life Bloom, Earthblood, and a Scroll of Power, while the infantry line consists of 4 units of Eternal Guard, a unit of Dryads, 3 units of War Dancers, and 3 units of War Dancers with Asurai Spears. Diplomatt has gone much more heavily on the melee route, with only 3 units of Glade Guard with Starfire Shafts forming his ranged contingent, and just the 1 unit of Wild Riders. Alright, as always, we're going to start with a conversation about deployment, and you'd think that I would be forced to make a pun about deployment, but I won't be a pain in the ash, and instead I'll say it was rooted in standard elf tactics from both sides, and I'll leave it at that. Let's start with Ondjage. Now you can see his priority is to stay hidden in the trees here, so the formation isn't perfectly laid out, I would say. We've got the War Dancers up front, though, alongside the Branch Wraith, of course, able to cause a decent amount of damage herself. Right behind her and them, we've got the Dryads. These guys able to dive in, or these girls able to dive in wherever necessary to provide some support to the front line, coming from the flanks, coming from the rears, whatever might be possible, while right behind them we do have the Glade Guard with their Starfire Shafts in the trees, and the Wild Riders right to their side, and right behind them, again, able to provide some screening all the way around just to make sure they're protected. Again, not the prettiest looking formation, but trying to stay hidden, while the Deepwood Scouts are free to stay out here. Of course, they have stock, so they will be hidden as they push forward, and over here as well we have the Waystalker hidden, and the Glade Lord in the air right in the center so as to give nothing away, while this last unit of Wild Riders is tucked away all the way back here. I think the plan there might have been twofold. For one, maybe push these Wild Riders up and get some scouting information to make sure nothing sneaky is happening over here, and 2, maybe if something sneaky is happening and it decides to push forward and try and get a rear charge or a flanking maneuver in, these Wild Riders are able to come in and intercept that aggression and just make sure it's shut down, buy some time for the rest of the Wood Elf army. So I think that's the plan there with that positioning. Meanwhile, Diplomatt's army, again, a lot more reliant on its melee formation, and you'll see they're more focused on sort of being in formation as opposed to staying hidden. They have a lot thinner tract of trees to stay hidden in, so they wouldn't be able to keep a clean formation. So they're just staying a bit more open here. We've got the Eternal Guard up front, forming that front line blockade. Right behind them, we do have the Glade Lord again on foot, alongside the Spellsinger of Life, able to provide that magical support. The Glade Lord able to dive into combat as well, while the Glade Guard, are right behind them with their Starfire Shafts, able to get some range support in. Then we've got the Dryads over here, alongside the War Dancers, again, capable of pushing forward if necessary, or pulling back and supporting these War Dancers with Asurai Spear instead if necessary. And those War Dancers with Asurai Spear, if any Wild Riders decide to come in from the rears, those Spears are going to do a lot of work. And obviously, these Wild Riders are sort of tucked in the center as well, trying to stay hidden, able to push in from anywhere, get some rear charges, side charges, shut down range support, whatever it might be. But again, a little less wary about staying hidden, Diplomatt, so he's got his wings exposed, showing Ondjage exactly where he is. And as a result of that, as both armies start pushing forward ever so slowly, ever so cautiously towards each other, you will notice that the Wild Riders back here as well, they do start to feel a little confident about their situation, and they will start to poke out of the trees there as well. Now, the Glade Lord pushing forward again alongside the Deepwood Scouts and the Waystalker, but these guys are all hidden. They can't be seen, so Diplomatt still doesn't know exactly where the enemy army is, but you can see again these Wild Riders over here feeling relatively confident that it's safe to push forward, pulling forward, and not too worried about anything coming in from there. It would have been a good idea to maybe get some scouting done, but I think Ondjage is pretty confident that everything is sitting over there, especially as that rotation takes place and more units sort of reveal themselves. Now at this point in time, you'll notice also the Glade Lord is actually pushing forward from Ondjage to get some scouting done, I think, just to make sure there's nothing sneaking around, nothing, tucked away in this area, so that as Ondjage pays attention to this side, something pops out of there, maybe some Deepwood Scouts or a Waystalker or something is tucked away there. So the Glade Lord just pushes forward and gets some scouting done. So great work there. It's always good to have vision on the field. That's how you, knowledge is power, right? So you'll see up front here, these Deepwood Scouts start to get some initial shots off alongside the Waste Stalker, trying to get some shots into the Glade Guard over here, shut down enemy range support right from the get-go, as again, the armies both push and creep towards each other. So those first few shots do go off, getting a little bit of damage in, but the Glade Guard do respond in kind, getting some shots into these Deepwood Scouts who have now revealed themselves. Obviously, the Waste Stalker stays hidden while firing, so the Waste Stalker is safe, but these Deepwood Scouts most certainly are not. They are being shot up, while, again, the melee contingent is pushing forward alongside some of those range units just to make sure that when engagements begin, they're, favorable, obviously. Meanwhile, the Glade Guard from Ondjage opening shots off. Most of those shots, though, hitting trees and not getting any damage in, so these War Dancers are going into respawn, and they're going to be in a bit of a tight spot as this much larger selection of War Dancers and Eternal Guard push in, and those charges go down, and you can see right away Ondjage's War Dancers in a very precarious situation, taking a lot of damage. The Branch Wraith does have to dive in alongside the Dryads over here as well. Meanwhile, the Glade Lord as well, again, pushing forward and getting some scouting done nice and early, getting some information to make sure there's nothing else sneaky happening, and then pulling away. No need to dive in and get too aggressive from the get-go, while you'll see some of these Deepwood Scouts still firing away at these Glade Guard as they open shots off into the melee engagements, trying to cause some hurt to Ondjage's War Dancers over here, make sure they drop, maybe try and get some damage into these Dryads as well. They are susceptible to flaming attacks, of course. Meanwhile, back here, you'll see as these Wild Riders try to push in to provide some support to the front lines, they do get hit by the Prey of Anathema, so that these Wild Riders are able to push in and dive into them, and you'll see they push right through these War Dancers with their Ice Spears. Their spears be damned, these Wild Riders dive right through and get into these Wild Riders, while these Wild Riders here push forward and try and provide support to this frontline engagement. Meanwhile, the Glade Lord from Ondjage does get hit by the Prey of Anathema as well, getting pinned down, but unfortunately able to dive into melee before being hit by that, so able to get a lot of damage done, while you'll see this left flank trying to be rescued here by Ondjage's Wild Riders, while the Wild Riders from Diplomatt getting shut down, and these Wild Riders as well pushing into those Eternal, or rather the Glade Guard, sorry, trying to shut that range support down, make sure that Ondjage has a better time in the front line, while back here you'll see Ondjage's range support is doing a lot of work, trying to get damage into these War Dancers, trying to get some damage into the Dryads and the Eternal, or the Glade Guard as well, while they stand there obstructed by their own melee line. Meanwhile, take a look at this wonderful Arrow of Kronos coming in from the Waste Stalker, doing a tremendous amount of damage with that explosion into these War Dancers, the Asterai Spear. A pretty expensive unit taken care of in one shot there from the Waste Stalker. So great work spotting that as the Asterai Spears dive into the Wild Riders, making sure the Wild Riders can stay engaged, they don't have to pull away, and instead can take care of these Glade Guard. Meanwhile, over here you'll see as these War Dancers with the Asterai Spear dove into the Wild Riders from Ondjage, they did start eating a lot of damage, but not before they took care of these Wild Riders. They've done a lot of work to these Wild Riders, reducing Diplomat's only cavalry unit to about a quarter of its health. A bit over a quarter, let's say, actually. Otherwise, though, you'll see Ondjage is not having a good time in that frontline engagement, with the Eternal Guard and the War Dancers from Diplomatt outnumbering his melee units. Diplomatt is definitely winning the melee situation, while over here as well you see this Eternal Guard chasing after these Glade Guard over here, forcing these guys to split apart, so well managed. They're splitting these guys apart, while the Deepwood Scouts now opening shots up to the sides of the Eternal Guards, getting some damage in. If they had shields, that would make a difference. Of course, they don't, but all that fire coming in from the Glade Guard as well, shutting these guys down before they're really able to close that gap, scaring these guys right off, while over here these Wild Riders still chasing some of these units away. These War Dancers are routing. These Wild Riders have been shattered, so again, that only cavalry unit from Diplomatt has been completely taken care of. Meanwhile, back here, we've got the Glade Lord diving in on these War Dancers alongside, or rather the Asterai Spear alongside the War Dancers from Ondjage and these Wild Riders as well, shutting down those Dryads, causing a lot of damage, while the Deepwood Scouts opening shots off at the Glade Guard from Diplomatt, shutting them down as well, making sure there's no range support left either. So very quick work there, very quick engagement there. The frontline engagement was very essential, but you'll see Ondjage's Wild Riders were able to get a lot of damage, and now they're tucking away, trying to stay safe from this clump over here as Earthblood does go down, trying to keep these guys alive and healthy, obviously, while over here you'll see these War Dancers trying to shut down these War Dancers from Diplomatt as well, just to make sure they're not able to come back, creep up from like a rear charge or something like that, while this Eternal Guard again chasing after this unit of Glade Guard, but these guys are split away nicely, so with all that range fire coming in, the Eternal Guard is made to shut down, basically waver and rout before they're able to close the gap. And once more, you'll see these Deepwood Scouts opening shots off into this clump over here, getting some damage into the ranged units, but of course the trees are going to provide some support, some cover, which is unfortunate. And meanwhile, the Wild Riders here as well pulling away, while the Arrow of Kronos goes down, causing a tremendous amount of damage to these War Dancers as well as the Glade Guard over there with their Starfire shafts. So a lot of range fire sort of exchanging back and forth over here. You'll see that Diplomat's Wood Elves do still stand a chance. They've got some War Dancers with the Asterai Spear. They're a very capable unit. The Wild Riders here, though, just on cleanup duty, just trying to make sure that nothing comes back from Diplomatt that's already that should have already been taken care of, because you'll see back here these War Dancers as well made to completely shatter before these War Dancers from Ondjage giving up the chase, and now turning back around and pulling back. Meanwhile, we've got the Prey of Anathema going down on these War Dancers just to make sure that they take a lot more missile damage, and all that range fire coming in, doing a tremendous amount of work, while the Glade Lord as well coming in from Ondjage into this clump to try and cause some damage if necessary where possible, while Melkoth's Mystifying Miasma slows these Dryads down so they're not able to close the gap here onto these Deepwood Scouts before they're able to get some shots in. Now, Diplomat decides that he doesn't stand a chance and does the gentlemanly thing and calls GG. Now, I think the battle was an absolute treat. That pun was not intentional. Ondjage was able to shut down all of Diplomat's individual functioning parts with little challenge, and as we already know, losing support structures results in an overall loss as well. Diplomat's ranged units were not kept safe from the aggressive Wild Riders, and while his War Dancers with Asurai Spear went to respond, an Arrow of Kronos shut them down, since Diplomat wasn't able to shut down Ondjage's Waystalker, as his one and only unit of Wild Riders was netted down and dealt with right away. Though his infantry was much stronger than Ondjage's, good use of flanking tactics and range support meant Ondjage's Wood Elves took the day. As always, make sure you subscribe to this channel for more Total War content, and keep sending in those battle replays. I do think it's one of the best ways to learn, and honestly, highlighting such amazing battles from the community is always a great time. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you on the battlefield.